The small cantina on the edge of New Dallas settlement buzzed with quiet conversation. Workers from the mining operations sat at worn tables, drinking cheap beer and complaining about the heat. In the corner, a woman sat alone, watching everything, with sharp green eyes. She looked human enough, but something about her made people nervous. Maybe it was the way she never seemed to blink, or how her fingers were always warm when she touched her glass. Her name was Zarathik. Though the humans knew her as Sarah, she had been many things over her long life. A dragon, a warrior, a wanderer, between stars. But for the past 3 months, she had been fascinated by something she had never expected to find interesting. Humans, not their wars or their politics or their religions. Those things bored her. What caught her attention was their ability to fix things, to take broken machines and make them work again, to build something from nothing when everyone else said it was impossible. She had traveled to 17 different worlds in the past year, watching humans work. They were scattered across the galaxy like seeds in the wind, most of them far from their homeworld of Earth. Many were stranded, their ships broken, their money gone, but they kept trying. They kept building and fixing and hoping. That was why she was here, in this dusty mining town on a planet that barely showed up on star maps. She had heard about Jake Mitchell. Jake sat 3 tables away, nursing a beard he could barely afford. He was thin, maybe 30 years old, with grease under his fingernails and worry lines around his eyes. His transport ship had broken down 6 months ago. The repairs cost more than he had ever seen in his life. The local mechanics had given up on it weeks ago, calling it space junk. But Jake kept trying. Every day he worked on that ship. Every night he came to the cantina and stared at his drink, probably wondering if he would ever see Earth again. Zarathik had watched him work. She had seen him take apart engines that other mechanics said were dead. She had seen him make parts from scrap metal when he could not buy new ones. She had seen him talk to his ship like it was a friend who just needed encouragement. Yesterday, she had seen him make a fuel injector work using nothing but wire, prayer, and pure human stubbornness. The part should not have functioned. By every law of physics and engineering, it should have failed. But it worked because Jake Mitchell believed it would work. That was when she decided to make her offer. She stood up and walked over to his table. Jake looked up, surprised. Pretty women did not usually approach him in cantinas, especially not women who looked like they had money. "You are Jake Mitchell," she said. It was not a question. "Yeah, do I know you?" "No, but I know you. I have been watching you work on your ship." Jake's face went hard. "Look, lady, if you are here to tell me I cannot use that bay anymore, I paid for another week. I have got the receipt. I am not here about the bay. I am here to make you an offer." She sat down across from him without being invited. Up close, Jake could see that her eyes were not just green. They were green like emeralds, bright and deep at the same time. They seemed to glow in the dim light of the cantina. "What kind of offer?" "I want to hire you to build me a ship." Jake almost laughed. "Lady, I cannot even fix my own ship." "What makes you think I can build you one?" "Because I have seen what you can do. I have seen you make impossible things work. I have seen you create solutions where none existed." "Yeah, well, creating solutions does not pay the bills. I am broke. I cannot afford the parts to fix my own transport, let alone build someone else a ship." Zarathik reached into her jacket and pulled out a small device. It looked like a credit pad, but it was made of metal that seemed to shift color in the light. She set it on the table between them. "Money is not a problem." Jake stared at the device. He had never seen anything like it. "What is that?" "A galactic credit standard account. It contains enough money to buy anything you need." "How much is enough?" "Enough to buy a shipyard." "Enough to buy a fleet of ships? Enough to buy this entire planet if you wanted it." Jake's mouth went dry. "Who are you?" "Someone who appreciates talent. Someone who understands that humans have a gift for making impossible things possible." She leaned forward. "I want you to build me a ship, Jake Mitchell, not just any ship. I want you to build me something that can go anywhere in the galaxy. Something that can survive in the most dangerous places. Something that can outrun anything that chases it and outfight anything that corners it. That is not a ship. That is a fantasy. Is it? Yesterday I watched you make a fuel injector from scrap metal and determination. Last week I watched you repair a gravitic stabilizer using parts from a food processor. You humans do not build ships. You work miracles. Jake was quiet for a long moment. He stared at the credit pad, then at the woman across from him. Why me? There are better mechanics out there. People with real shops, real tools, real experience. Because you are not trying to impress anyone. You are trying to go home. And there is nothing more powerful than a human who wants to go home. She stood up and left the credit pad on the table. There is an abandoned garage on the north side of town. It has been empty for 3 years. I bought it this morning. The deed is in your name now. Jake's eyes went wide. You bought me a garage? I bought us a workspace. The garage comes with everything in it. Tools, parts, equipment, everything the previous owner left behind. What? Did the previous owner leave behind? Zarathik smiled, and for just a moment Jake thought he saw something strange in her eyes. Something that was not quite human. Junk, mostly. Broken machines, old parts, things that do not work anymore. But I think you will find it interesting. She turned to leave, then looked back at him. I will be back tomorrow morning. Think about my offer, Jake Mitchell. Think about what you could build with unlimited resources and no one telling you it. Is impossible. After she left, Jake sat alone with the credit pad. He picked it up carefully as if it might explode. The surface was warm to the touch, and numbers scrolled across a small screen. The amount made him dizzy. With that much money, he could buy a new ship instead of building one. He could book passage on a luxury liner back to Earth. He could live like a king for the rest of his life. But that was not what excited him about the offer. What excited him was the challenge. A ship that could go anywhere and do anything. A ship that could survive the impossible and come back asking for more. He had been fixing broken things his whole life. Maybe it was time to build something new. Next morning, Jake stood in front of the abandoned garage. It was bigger than he had expected, with high ceilings and thick walls. The previous owner had been some kind of trader, dealing in salvage and scrap. The place was filled with machines and parts and things Jake could not identify. Zarathik was waiting for him inside. She stood in the middle of the chaos, looking perfectly at home among the broken dreams and forgotten projects. Well, she asked, what do you think? Jake looked around the garage. It was full of possibilities, full of potential, full of the kind of challenges that made his hands itch to get to work. I think, he said slowly, that we are going to build something amazing. Zarathik smiled. I was hoping you would say that. Neither of them noticed the faded military markings on some of the hull plates stacked in the corner. Neither of them saw the Earth Defense Force serial numbers on the equipment hidden under tarps and dust. Neither of them realized that the junk filling the garage was not junk at all. It was the scattered remains of something that had been lost among the stars for decades. Something that had been waiting for the right human to find it and bring it back to life. The work was about to begin. Jake started work the next morning before sunrise. He had spent the night walking around the garage, looking at everything with a flashlight. The place was huge, much bigger than it looked from outside. The previous owner had filled every corner with something. Most of it looked like junk, but Jake had learned long ago that one person's junk was another person's treasure. He began in the far corner, where someone had stacked metal plates against the wall. They were heavy, heavier than normal hull plating. Jake ran his hands over the surface, feeling for weak spots or damage. The metal was strange. It felt solid, but there was something else about it. Something that made his fingers tingle. Under the dust and grime he could see faint markings. Numbers and letters that had been etched into the surface. They were hard to read, but Jake had good eyes. He grabbed a rag and started cleaning one of the plates. The markings became clearer as he worked. They were not random scratches or manufacturer stamps. They were serial numbers, military serial numbers. Jake had seen enough ships to know the difference between civilian and military equipment. This was definitely military, but whose military? The numbers did not match any system Jake knew. They were too long, too complex, and there was something else. In the corner of each plate, almost too faint to see, was a small symbol. It looked like a bird with spread wings, holding something in its claws. Jake stared at the symbol for a long time. It looked familiar, but he could not place it. He had seen it somewhere before, but where? Zarathik arrived an hour later, carrying coffee and breakfast. She found Jake sitting on the floor next to the hull plates, staring at the symbols. "Find something interesting?" she asked. "Maybe. These plates are military grade. High-quality stuff, but I cannot figure out who made them." She handed him a cup of coffee. "Does it matter? Can you use them?" "Oh, I can use them. This is some of the best hull plating I have ever seen. Strong, light, probably radiation resistant. Too, but I'm curious about where it came from." Zarathik looked at the plates but said nothing. She had her own suspicions about what they might find in the garage, but she wanted to see what Jake would discover on his own. Jake spent the next week sorting through everything. He made lists of what he found, organized parts by type and condition. Most of the equipment was damaged, but not beyond repair. Whoever had owned this stuff knew good equipment when they saw it. The deeper he dug, the more strange things became. He found engine components that were far too advanced for a civilian ship. He found weapon mounts that were clearly military. He found computer cores that looked like they came from a warship, but everything was broken. Not just damaged, but deliberately taken apart. Someone had carefully disassembled whatever ship this equipment came from. They had removed every bolt, disconnected every wire, separated every component. It was like finding a puzzle with 10,000 pieces and no picture to follow. Jake loved puzzles. He started small, working on individual components. A power relay here, a sensor array there. Each piece he fixed taught him something about the whole. Slowly, a picture began to form in his mind. Not just of what the ship had been, but of what it could become. The engine system was the first thing that really caught his attention. It was not like anything he had seen before. Most ships use standard fusion drives or ion engines. This was something else. Something that could push a ship faster than should be possible. Jake spent 3 days just looking at the engine pieces. He drew diagrams, made notes, tried to understand how it all fit together. When he finally started working on it, he felt like he was discovering fire. The engine was not just fast. It was smart. It had systems that could adjust power output based on conditions. It had backups for the backups. It had safety features that would protect the crew even if everything else went wrong, but it was also hungry. This engine would need fuel, lots of it. And not just any fuel. It would need military-grade antimatter, the kind that cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Jake mentioned this too. Zarathik one evening as they sat in the cantina after work. "The engine is incredible," he said. "But it will be expensive. To run, really expensive." "How expensive?" "A single tank of fuel would cost more than buying a new civilian transport." Zarathik just smiled. "Money is not a problem, remember?" "Right. Sometimes I forget you are rich." "I am not rich, Jake. I am something else entirely." There was something in her voice that made Jake look at her more carefully. In the dim light of the cantina, her eyes seemed to glow. Not just reflect the light, but actually glow with their own inner fire. "What are you exactly?" he asked. "I am someone who appreciates good work, and you are doing very good work." She changed the subject before Jake could ask more questions. But he filed the moment away in his memory. There was definitely something unusual about his employer. The next breakthrough came when Jake started working on the ship's computer system. The previous owner had removed all the data storage, but the hardware was still there. Advanced quantum processors, neural network interfaces, artificial intelligence cores. This was not just a computer. It was a brain. Jake had worked on ship computers before, but nothing like this. Most civilian ships had simple navigation computers that could plot courses and run basic systems. This computer could think. It could learn. It could make decisions, but it was also locked down tight. Military encryption, multiple security layers, authorization codes that Jake could not begin to guess. Whoever had built this ship did not want just anyone using it. Jake spent a week trying to break the encryption. He used every trick he knew, called in favors from other mechanics, even contacted some questionable people who specialized in bypassing security systems. Nothing worked. The computer was not just locked, it was sleeping, waiting for the right person to wake it up. Jake was working late one night when he had an idea. Instead of trying to break into the computer, what if he talked to it? What if he treated it like a person instead of a machine? He connected a basic interface to the main processor and started typing. "Hello, my name is Jake Mitchell. I am trying to repair your ship." He waited. Nothing happened for several minutes. Then, slowly, words appeared on the screen. "Identification required. Please provide authorization code." Jake typed back. "I do not have authorization codes. I am just a mechanic. But I want to help." Another long pause. Then, "Mechanic designation noted. What is your purpose?" "I want to fix you. I want to make you work again. I want to help you fly." The computer was quiet for a long time. Jake was about to give up when new words appeared. "Systems have been offline for 4,247 days. Ship status unknown. Crew status unknown. Mission status unknown." Jake felt a chill run down his spine. Over 4,000 days, that was more than 11 years. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had been a long time ago. "Where are you from?" he typed. "Earth Defense Force Deep. Space Reconnaissance Division. Classification level, ultra secret." Jake stared at the screen. Earth Defense Force, he had heard of them, but they were supposed to be a myth. A story that spacers told to scare each other. Secret military ships that operated in the darkest parts of space, doing things that officially never happened. "What was your mission?" he asked. "Mission parameters classified. Authorization required for access. What happened to your crew?" "Crew. Status unknown. Last contact with command, 4,247 days ago. Standing by for new orders." Jake sat back in his chair. He was not just rebuilding a ship, he was rebuilding a ghost. A vessel that had been lost among the stars for over a decade, waiting for someone to find it and bring it back to life. But why was it here? How had it ended up in pieces in an abandoned garage on a mining world at the edge of nowhere? And why did Zarathik want him to rebuild it? He looked around the garage with new eyes. This was not just a workspace. It was a tomb. The scattered remains of a ship that had died far from home, along with everyone who had served on it. Jake had always been good at fixing broken things. But this was different. This was not just about making something work again. This was about bringing the dead back to life. The computer was still waiting for his response. Jake thought about what to say. Finally, he typed, "I'm going to help you go home." The screen flickered. Then, home coordinates accepted. Beginning system diagnostics. Estimate for full restoration, unknown. Probability of success, unknown. Recommend caution, Jake smiled. Computer, I am human. We do not do caution. There was another pause. Then, for the first time, the computer seemed almost amused. Noted, beginning repair protocols. Welcome aboard, Mechanic Mitchell. Jake worked until dawn, talking to the computer, learning about the ship's systems, planning the restoration. By the time Zarathik arrived the next morning, he had a better understanding of what they were dealing with. This was not just any ship. This was something special. Something that had been built to go places where other ships could not survive. Something that had been designed to come back from the impossible, and now it was his responsibility to make sure it could do that again. Word traveled fast in a small mining town. By the end of the week, everyone knew that Jake Mitchell was building something big in the old garage. People started coming by to look. Some were curious, others were bored, and a few were genuinely interested in helping. The first person to offer help was Lisa Park. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, who had been stranded on the planet for 2 years. She knocked on the garage door early one morning while Jake was working on the engine assembly. "You are Jake Mitchell," she said when he opened the door. That seems to be what everyone says. What can I do for you? I heard you are building a ship, a real ship, not just patching up some old transport. Jake studied her carefully. She was older than most of the stranded humans, maybe 50 years old, but her hands were steady and her eyes were alert. She looked like someone who knew her way around machinery. Maybe. Why do you ask? Lisa smiled. Because I used to build ships for the Earth Navy, 20 years, from hull design to final testing. I know good work when I see it, and I know when someone is in over their head. She walked past Jake into the garage without being invited. Her eyes moved quickly over the equipment, the organized parts, the diagrams Jake had drawn on the walls. She stopped when she saw the engine components. Well, I will be damned, she said quietly. Where did you get a Mark 7 fusion drive? Jake felt his stomach drop. You know what this is? I helped design it. Back when I was young and stupid and thought military secrets would stay secret. She turned to look at him. This is not civilian equipment, Jake. This is military hardware. Top-level stuff. I know. The computer told me it was Earth Defense Force. Lisa went very still. You got the computer working? Sort of. It talks to me, but most of its systems are locked down. It says it needs authorization codes. Show me. Jake led her to the computer terminal. The screen was dark, but when he typed a greeting, words appeared immediately. Good morning, Mechanic Mitchell. How may I assist you today? Lisa stared at the screen. My God, it is really them. Them? The ghost ships. The ones that disappeared during the Frontier Wars. We heard stories, but Command always denied everything. She sat down at the terminal and started typing. Her fingers moved quickly over the keys, entering commands that Jake did not recognize. The computer responded with technical specifications, system diagrams, and status reports. This is the RSS Defiance, Lisa said after several minutes. She was one of 12 ships built for deep space reconnaissance. Officially, she never existed. Unofficially, she was the most advanced ship in the fleet. What happened to her? No one knows. The whole squadron went dark about 12 years ago. Command said it was a classified mission, but they never came back. After a while, people stopped asking questions. Jake felt a chill. You think the crew is dead? I think the crew never made it home, but that does not mean they are dead. Space is big, Jake. Ships get lost out there all the time. More people arrived over the following days. Ben Carter was a welder who had been stranded for 5 years after his mining contract ended. He was a big man with thick arms and a gentle smile. He took one look at the hull plating and offered to help with the metalwork. Amy Rodriguez was an electronics specialist who had been working on the planet's communication systems. She was young, maybe 25, with quick hands and a sharp mind. She saw the computer cores and asked if she could help with the wiring. Danny Kim was a pilot who had been grounded when his ship was impounded for unpaid docking fees. He was quiet and serious, but his eyes lit up when he saw the navigation equipment. One by one they came. Humans who had been scattered across the galaxy, ending up on this forgotten world with broken dreams and empty pockets. They had nothing in common except their species and their desire to go home, but when they saw what Jake was building, they saw hope. The work became a community effort. Jake remained the lead mechanic, but everyone contributed what they could. Lisa redesigned the engine systems to work with available parts. Ben welded hull sections together with precision that impressed even Jake. Amy rewired the entire electrical system, improving on the original design. Danny studied the navigation computer and figured out how to update the star charts. The ship's maps were 12 years out of date, and a lot had changed in the galaxy since then. Zarathic watched it all with fascination. She had expected to hire one human to build her a ship. Instead, she had somehow created a magnet that drew humans from across the planet. They came to work on the ship, but they stayed to be part of something bigger than themselves. She began to understand that humans were not just good at fixing things. They were good at fixing each other. The stranded workers who had been lonely and hopeless for years suddenly had purpose. They had friends. They had a reason to get up in the morning. The garage became a meeting place. People brought food to share during breaks. They told stories about home, about families they had not seen in years, about dreams they had given up on. The work was hard, but the atmosphere was hopeful. Jake found himself becoming a leader without meaning to. People came to him with problems, both technical and personal. He helped settle disputes, made decisions about the ship's design, and somehow kept everyone focused on the goal. The ship began to take shape. The hull sections were welded together and tested for pressure. The engine was assembled and calibrated. The computer systems were installed and connected. Slowly, the scattered pieces became a whole, but the more they worked, the more questions arose. Why had the RSS Defiance been disassembled? Who had done it? How had the parts ended up in this garage? Jake asked the computer, but it claimed not to remember. Its last clear memory was of the ship being damaged in some kind of battle. After that, everything was unclear. Systems went offline during emergency procedures, the computer explained. When I came back online, the ship was already disassembled. I have no record of the intervening time. Lisa had her own theory. Someone found the wreck and salvaged it. Military ships are worth a fortune on the black market, even broken ones. But they would have had to be careful. If Earth Defense Force found out someone was selling their secrets, they would not be happy. So they broke it down into pieces, Jake said. Made it look like random salvage. Exactly. Then they could sell the parts individually without anyone realizing what they were. Amy looked up from the wiring she was working on. But why keep it all together? Why not sell the pieces? Maybe they could not find buyers, Ben suggested. This is pretty advanced stuff. Most people would not even know what it was. Or maybe, Lisa said quietly, they were waiting for the right person to find it. She looked at Jake meaningfully. Someone who could put it back together. Someone who could make it fly again. Jake felt uncomfortable with the suggestion. You think this was all planned? That someone wanted me to rebuild this ship? I think, Zarathik said from the doorway, that some things are meant to happen. She had been quiet for most of the conversation, but now she stepped forward. Perhaps the ship was waiting for the right crew. Perhaps it knew that eventually humans would find it and bring it back to life. Ships do not know anything, Danny said. They're just machines. Are they? Zarathik looked at the computer terminal where status lights blinked in complex patterns. This ship has been sleeping for 12 years. But it woke up when Jake talked to it. It chose to trust him with its secrets. It chose to let him bring it back to life. You are talking about it like it is alive, Amy said. Maybe it is. Maybe all ships are alive in their own way. Maybe they just need the right humans to help them remember how to fly. Jake looked around the garage at the work they had accomplished. The ship was nearly complete. Soon it would be ready for testing. Soon they would find out if their efforts had been successful, but success meant more than just making the ship fly. It meant going home. It meant leaving this place and returning to the stars. Jake realized that he would miss this. The work. The camaraderie, the sense of building something important. For the first time in his life, he felt like he was part of something bigger than himself. What happens when we finish? He asked. We fly, Lisa said simply. We take this ship and we go home, all of us, all of us. This is our ship now. We built it together, we will fly it together. Jake nodded. That felt right. The RSS Defiance had been built to carry a crew of 12. They had 7 people now, plus Zarathik. It was not a full crew, but it was their crew, and soon it would be time to find out if they had built a ship or just an expensive pile of metal. The computer seemed to sense his thoughts. Words appeared on the screen without anyone typing anything. Crew complement, 8. Ship status, 93%. Operational recommendation, begin flight preparations. Jake smiled. You heard the ship. Let us get ready to fly. The first test flight was scheduled for dawn. Jake had barely slept the night before, going over system checks and running diagnostics. The RSS Defiance sat in the expanded garage bay, looking like a sleeping dragon. Ben had welded together additional hull sections to make the ship longer and more powerful than the original design. Amy had upgraded the electronics with modern components. Lisa had fine-tuned the engines until they hummed with barely contained energy, but none of them knew if it would actually fly. The crew gathered in the cockpit as the sun rose over the mining settlement. Danny sat in the pilot's seat, his hands steady on the controls. Lisa monitored the engine readings from the engineering station. Amy watched the electrical systems. Ben checked the hull integrity sensors. Jake stood behind the pilot's chair, trying to look confident. Zarathik had insisted on coming along, despite Jake's protests that first flights were dangerous. She sat quietly in the navigator's seat, her green eyes bright with excitement. "All systems show green," Danny reported. "Engines are warm and ready. Computer, are you prepared for flight?" "All systems nominal," the ship's voice replied through the speakers. "Flight crew complement 8. Mission parameters: test flight, estimated duration 1 hour. Recommend caution during initial ascent." Jake felt his heart pounding. "Everyone strapped in?" "Lisa, how are the engines?" "Running smooth as silk. These Mark 7 drives are beautiful pieces of work. I forgot how responsive they could be." "Amy, all electrical systems nominal. We have full power to all decks." "Ben? Hull is solid, no stress fractures, no weak points. She is built to last." Jake took a deep breath. "Danny, take us up." The engines fired with a deep rumble that Jake felt in his bones. The ship lifted slowly from the garage bay, rising into the morning sky. Through the windows, Jake could see the mining settlement shrinking below them, but something was wrong. The ship was not flying like a normal transport. It was flying like a predator. The engines were too quiet, too smooth. The hull barely vibrated. The controls responded instantly to Danny's touch. "This is not a civilian ship," Danny said quietly. "This is a warship." As if responding to his words, the computer spoke again. "Warning. Weapons systems detected. Military protocols engaged. Recommend authorization before accessing combat systems." Jake felt cold. "Computer, what weapons systems?" "Plasma cannons, torpedo launchers, defensive screens, electronic warfare suite. All systems offline pending authorization. Current threat level 0. Lisa looked up from her station. "Jake, we need to talk about this." The Defiance was not just a reconnaissance ship. She was a fighter. Built to go into dangerous territory and come back alive. "How dangerous?" Amy asked. "The kind of dangerous that normal ships do not survive." They climbed higher, leaving the planet's atmosphere behind. The stars appeared in the windows, bright and clear. Jake had forgotten how beautiful space could look when you were not worried about life support failing or engines breaking down. The computer ran them through basic maneuvers. Turns, acceleration, deceleration. The ship responded like it was reading. Danny's mind, every movement was smooth and precise. "Computer," Jake said, "can you tell us more about your original mission?" "Mission classification. Ultra secret. Access denied without proper authorization." "What kind of authorization?" "Earth Defense Force command codes or direct order from ranking military officer." Lisa straightened in her chair. "Computer, this is Commander Lisa Park, Earth Navy, retired. Serial number 7749 Delta Charlie. I was part of the team that designed your engine systems." There was a long pause, then identity confirmed. "Commander Park, you are not listed as active duty." "No, I am retired." "But I helped build you. Does that count for anything?" Another pause. "Consulting designer status recognized. Limited access granted. How may I assist you, Commander?" Jake felt a surge of hope. "Computer, can you tell us what happened to your original crew?" Original crew status, missing in action. Last contact with Earth Defense Force, 4,249 days ago. Mission was deep space reconnaissance in the outer rim sectors. What were you looking for out there? Threat assessment. Reports indicated unusual activity in unpopulated systems. Command wanted to investigate. Amy leaned forward. What kind of unusual activity? Unknown ships? Advanced technology. Possible first contact scenario. The words hung in the air like a bomb. First contact. That meant aliens. Not the friendly kind that humans traded with, but something new. Something unknown. Did you find them? Lisa asked. Affirmative. Contact was made in the Kepler 438 system. Initial approach was peaceful, then the computer went quiet for so long that Jake thought it had stopped working. Then what? He prompted. Memory. Files corrupted. Next clear memory. Ship heavily damaged, crew unconscious, emergency protocols engaged. What happened to the crew? They were evacuated to life pods before ship systems failed completely. Pod locations unknown. Jake felt sick. The original crew had been forced to abandon ship in deep space. Their chances of survival would have been almost zero, but Danny was looking at something on his navigation screen. Computer, I am reading some strange signals out here. Are your sensors picking up anything? Scanning. Detecting multiple contacts at extreme range. Configuration unknown. Recommend caution? Jake looked at the tactical display. There were dots moving across the screen, too far away to identify but definitely artificial, ships of some kind. Are they heading toward us? He asked. Negative. Current course will take them toward the inner system. Estimated arrival at planetary orbit. 6 hours. The mining settlement, Amy said. They are going toward the planet. Zarathic spoke for the first time since launch. Computer, can you identify those ships? Negative. Configuration does not match any known human or allied designs. Technology appears advanced. Jake felt pieces clicking together in his mind. Computer, are these the same kind of ships your original crew encountered? Analyzing configuration similarities detected. Probability match, 87%. They followed you here? Lisa said grimly. Somehow they tracked the Defiance to this system. But the ship has been dead for 12 years, Ben protested. Maybe they have been looking for it all this time, Jake said. Maybe they want something that this ship has. The computer interrupted their conversation. Warning, incoming transmission on military frequencies. Source, unknown contacts. Put it through, Jake said. The voice that came through the speakers was not human. It was too deep, too musical. But the words were clear. Human vessel. You carry stolen technology. Return what was taken or face destruction. Jake looked around at his crew. They were all staring at him, waiting for his decision. Somehow, he had become the captain of this ship. The responsibility was terrifying. Computer, he said carefully. What did the original crew take? Classified material was recovered during the first contact mission. Details require higher authorization level. Commander Park? Lisa tried, but the computer remained silent about the specifics. Whatever the crew had found, it was locked away behind security barriers that even she could not access. The alien voice spoke again. You have 1 hour to comply. Return the stolen property and withdraw from this system. This is your only warning. Danny looked back at Jake. What do we do? Jake thought about the mining settlement below them. Thousands of people who had no idea that alien ships were heading their way. People who could not defend themselves against advanced technology. About his crew. Humans who had spent years stranded and forgotten, who had finally found hope again. He thought about the RSS Defiance, a ship that had been lost and abandoned, but was now alive again. Computer, he said, are our weapon systems functional? Weapon systems are operational but offline. Authorization required. I am authorizing them. This is an emergency. Authorization accepted. Weapon systems coming online. Warning. This ship is designed for combat against superior forces. Recommend extreme caution. Jake looked at his crew again. Lisa was checking weapon readouts with professional efficiency. Danny was studying the tactical display. Amy was rerouting power to defensive systems. Ben was monitoring hull integrity. They were not soldiers. They were mechanics and engineers and pilots. But they were human, and humans did not run from fights when innocent people were in danger. Computer, Jake said, send a message to those ships. Ready to transmit? Jake took a deep breath. This is the RSS Defiance. We do not know what you think we stole, but we are not giving you anything. And we are not letting you hurt the people on that planet. If you want to fight, you have got one. The alien response came quickly. So be it. Prepare to be destroyed. On the tactical display, the unknown ships changed course. They were heading straight for the Defiance now, their speed increasing rapidly. Jake looked around at his crew. One. More time? Anyone want to change their mind about this? Lisa smiled grimly. I helped design this ship to fight impossible odds. Let us see if we did a good job. Danny cracked his knuckles. I have been wanting to see what this thing can really do. Amy was already bringing weapons online. Those alien ships picked the wrong humans to mess with. Ben laughed. Jake, I have been welding hull plates for 5 years. I want to see if they can take a hit. Zarathic was quiet, but her eyes were glowing brighter than Jake had ever seen them. For just a moment, he thought he saw something else in those eyes. The alien ships came fast, faster than anything Jake had ever seen. On the tactical display, they looked like silver arrows cutting through space. The computer counted 6 of them, each one larger than the Defiance. Incoming missiles, Amy reported from her station. Multiple contacts, high velocity. Defensive screens up, Jake ordered. Screens activated, the computer replied. Warning, incoming weapons are of unknown design. Effectiveness of current defenses uncertain. Danny threw the ship into a sharp turn, using the Defiance's superior maneuverability to avoid the first wave of missiles. The ship moved like a dancer, graceful and quick. Jake felt the artificial gravity compensate for the violent motion. Keeping the crew stable in their seats, the missiles that missed them continued toward the planet below. Jake watched in horror as they streaked toward the mining settlement. Computer, can we intercept those missiles? Negative. Current position and trajectory make interception impossible. But the missiles never reached the planet. They exploded in brilliant flashes of light while still in space, as if they had hit an invisible wall. What happened? Jake asked. Unknown. Energy readings suggest some form of planetary defense system. Jake looked at Zarathic. She was sitting very still, her hands pressed flat against the navigator's console. Her eyes were closed, and she was breathing slowly and deeply. Zarathic? She opened her eyes and looked at him. For a moment, her pupils were not round like a human's. They were vertical slits, like a reptile's. The planet is protected, she said simply. Before Jake could ask what she meant, the alien ships opened fire with their main weapons, beams of purple energy lanced through space, striking the Defiance's shields. The ship shook under the impact. Shields holding at 80%, Amy reported. But they are hitting us with everything they have. Return fire, Jake ordered. The Defiance's plasma cannons swiveled and fired. Brilliant bolts of energy reached out toward the alien ships. 2 of them hit, causing one of the enemy vessels to spin out of control. Direct hit, Lisa called out. Enemy ship is damaged but still functional. Good shooting, computer. Thank you, Captain. However, enemy vessels are adapting to our weapons. Recommend tactical change. The alien ships spread out, trying to surround the Defiance. They were faster and more numerous, but the human ship was more agile. Danny flew like a man possessed, dodging energy beams and missile volleys with skill that impressed even Jake. How are you doing this? Jake asked. The ship is helping me, Danny replied. It is like it knows what I want to do before I do it. The computer spoke up. This vessel was designed to interface directly with human neural patterns. The pilot's intentions are read and anticipated by the flight control systems. You are reading his mind? Interpreting neural signals and translating them into flight commands. All human crew members are naturally compatible with this system. Jake realized what that meant. The ship was not just responding to their commands. It was becoming part of them. The same way they were becoming part of it. Another wave of missiles came at them. This time, the Defiance's point defense systems were ready. Laser turrets tracked and destroyed the incoming projectiles before they could reach the ship, but the aliens were learning too. Their next attack came from multiple directions at once, forcing Danny to choose which threats to dodge. Several energy beams grazed the hull, causing damage alarms to sound. Hull breach. On Deck 3, Ben reported. Damage control systems are sealing it, but we cannot take many more hits like that. Jake studied the tactical display. The alien ships were good, but they were fighting like machines. Precise, efficient, but predictable. Humans fought differently. Humans were chaos and creativity and pure stubborn refusal to give up. Computer, what do you know about human battle tactics? Extensive database available. Human military doctrine emphasizes adaptability, unpredictability, and aggressive action in the face of superior odds. Show them what that means. The Defiance suddenly accelerated straight toward the largest alien ship. Danny pushed the engines past their safety limits, making the ship move faster than it was designed to go. The aliens seemed surprised by the direct assault and hesitated. Just long enough for the Defiance to get close at point-blank range. Every weapon on the human ship fired at once. Plasma cannons, torpedo launchers, and defensive lasers all targeted the same spot on the alien vessel's hull. The combined firepower punched through their shields and tore a massive hole in their ship. The alien vessel exploded in a ball of fire and debris. Enemy ship destroyed, Amy reported with satisfaction, but the victory came at a cost. The close range explosion damaged the Defiance's forward shields. The remaining 5 alien ships immediately concentrated their fire on the weakened area. Forward shields failing, Amy called out. We need to get out of here. Danny was already moving, diving toward the planet's atmosphere. The alien ships followed, their weapons tracking the fleeing human vessel. Why are we going toward the planet? Jake asked. Because, Danny said grimly, if we are going to die, we are going to make sure these aliens remember what it cost them. But Zarathik stood up from her seat. No one is dying today. She walked to the center of the bridge, her movements strange and fluid. As Jake watched, her human disguise began to fall away. Her skin shimmered and changed, becoming covered in scales that reflected the bridge lights like jewels. Her eyes blazed with inner fire. Her fingernails became claws, and when she smiled, Jake could see rows of sharp teeth. My name is not Sarah, she said in a voice that was deeper and more musical than before. My name is Zarathik, and I am a dragon. The transformation continued. She grew taller, more imposing. Wings unfurled from her back, filling the bridge with their span. When she spoke again, her voice carried the weight of centuries. I have been watching humans for a very long time. I have seen your wars, your struggles, your incredible ability to achieve the impossible, but I have also seen your enemies. She gestured toward the alien ships on the tactical display. The Vashti, they call themselves the Collectors. They travel the galaxy, taking what they want from younger species. Technology, resources, entire worlds. What did they collect from the original crew? Lisa asked. Not what. Who? Zarathik's eyes flamed brighter. The Vashti do not just steal technology. They steal minds. They capture the most brilliant individuals from each species they encounter and force them to work as slaves. Jake felt sick. The original crew of the Defiance are still alive somewhere in Vashti space. The evidence of their capture was what the first crew managed to steal. Proof that the Collectors have been enslaving sentient beings for thousands of years, and now they want that evidence back. Yes, because if the galactic community learned what the Vashti really are, their empire would fall. The alien ships were getting closer. Their weapons charged for another attack. Can you stop them? Jake asked. Zarathik smiled, and it was not entirely friendly. Captain Mitchell, I am a dragon. We do not run from fights. She placed her clawed hands on the computer console. Computer, I am authorizing full combat protocols. Emergency battle mode. All restrictions lifted. Authorization accepted. Warning, full combat mode may result in significant collateral damage. Computer, Jake said, what exactly is full combat mode? This vessel was designed to operate in the most hostile environments in the galaxy. Full combat mode unlocks experimental weapon systems, tactical AI, and defensive measures that exceed normal operational parameters. The ship began to change. Jake could feel it in the deck plates under his feet. Systems that had been dormant came online. Weapons that had been hidden extended from concealed ports. The Defiance was no longer just a reconnaissance ship, it was a predator. "All crew, secure for combat," the computer announced. "Engaging enemy." Vessels. What happened next was barely believable. The Defiance moved like a living thing, diving and weaving through the alien formation. Its weapons fired with impossible accuracy, striking weak points that should have been impossible to hit. The ship's shields absorbed damage that should have destroyed them, and through it all, Zarathic stood at the center of the bridge, her dragon nature fully revealed, directing the battle with ancient wisdom and terrible power. The fight lasted only minutes. When it was over, 5 alien ships had been reduced to floating debris. The Defiance hung in space, damaged but victorious. "Enemy vessels destroyed," the computer reported. "All immediate threats eliminated." Jake looked around at his crew. They were staring at Zarathic with a mixture of awe and fear. "So," he said carefully, "you are a dragon." "I am. I have been alive for over 3,000 years. I have seen empires rise and fall. I have watched species evolve and go extinct. But I have never seen anything like humanity." "What do you mean?" "You do not just build ships, Jake Mitchell. You build hope. You take broken things and make them whole again. You refuse to accept defeat even when victory is impossible." She gestured toward the bridge around them. This ship was dead. Its crew was lost. Its mission was forgotten, but you brought it back to life. You gave it a new crew, a new purpose, a new chance to make a difference. "What happens now?" Amy asked. "Now," Zarathic said, "we go find the original crew. We use the evidence they gathered to expose the Vashti to the galaxy. And we show the universe what happens when you underestimate humanity."